What if the very thing we were taught to believe would bring us happiness is the same thing that slowly takes it away? For centuries, marriage has been presented as the natural path, the proof of love, the foundation of family, and even the measure of a successful life. We see it in movies, in religion, in the advice of parents, all repeating the same story, that to marry is to finally arrive. And yet, when we look closer at reality, a different picture emerges. Divorce rates keep rising. Countless couples stay together out of fear or duty instead of love, and many who remain married speak more of compromise, exhaustion, and routine than of joy. Even in modern times, with dating apps and endless choices, people still rush into marriage with the same dream, only to find themselves trapped in the same cycle of disappointment. Schopenhauer, long before all of this became visible in statistics, already warned that marriage was not designed for individual happiness, but for something far colder, the survival of the species. He argued that what we call love is often just nature's way of tricking us into bonds that serve life itself, not the people who live it. This is why so many couples discover that once the first wave of passion fades, they are left with the weight of duty, children, financial pressure, and the slow decay of desire. What was supposed to save them often becomes the reason they feel stuck. The question is not why so many marriages fail, but why we still hold on to the belief that they should succeed. And if we dare to listen to Schopenhauer, we might realize that marriage is less a promise of happiness and more a contract with nature that demands everything while giving little back. From the time we are children, marriage is presented to us as the natural destination of love, the proof that two people have found something so powerful, it must be sealed forever. It is dressed in ceremonies, rings, promises, and social applause, as if the act itself carried magic. For many, marriage is not just about romance. It is about status, about belonging to a system that rewards those who follow its script. Think of how often we see friends and family rush to ask, "When are you getting married?" as if life without it is somehow incomplete. Even in modern times, with careers, independence, and freedom to choose other paths, the pressure remains. People still post wedding photos like trophies. Entire industries thrive on the promise of the perfect day, and the image of marriage continues to dominate culture. Yet, beneath all this celebration lies a quiet truth. Most of what we admire about marriage is not about the people inside it, but about the story we attach to it. The dress, the music, the vows, the applause, they all create the feeling of victory, even though what follows is unknown. Reality shows us that many enter marriage not out of deep understanding, but out of fear of being alone, fear of judgment, or the belief that this step will finally give their life meaning. That is why so often, behind the perfect photos, there are strained faces, hidden fights, and silent doubts. The seductive ideal of marriage promises certainty in a world full of uncertainty. But what if that promise is more illusion than truth? Schopenhauer forces us to see that the beauty we attach to marriage is often a projection of our longing for security, not a reflection of what marriage actually gives. When Schopenhauer looked at marriage, he stripped away the romance and saw something far more basic, the plan of nature working through us without our awareness. He argued that what we call falling in love is less about two people choosing each other freely and more about the species ensuring its survival. Desire, attraction, and even the idea of destiny between two partners are forces that push us toward reproduction, not toward lasting happiness. Modern science confirms this in ways Schopenhauer could only guess. Studies show that brain chemicals like dopamine and oxytocin flood us during the first stages of passion, creating an illusion of deep connection. But those same chemicals fade after a few years, leaving couples facing a very different reality, This is why so many relationships begin with fire and end in cold distance. Nature has already achieved its goal once children appear, and the bond that felt eternal often turns into duty. We see proof of this every day in couples who no longer speak of love but of responsibilities, bills, and survival. Marriage, then, can be understood not as a sacred promise, but as a biological contract where the individual sacrifices freedom for the sake of the species. Schopenhauer insisted, this is why so many married people feel trapped, because at a deeper level, they did not choose for themselves. They were chosen by life itself. It is unsettling to think that the feelings we value most may not serve us, but something beyond us. Yet when we look at the exhaustion of parents, the countless couples who stay together only for the children, and the disillusionment that follows passion, it becomes harder to deny. What seems like a personal decision may be nothing more than nature's quiet demand that we continue its cycle. Schopenhauer believed that love, the very force people celebrate as the highest joy of life, is in truth a carefully staged trick. When two people fall in love, they feel as if they have discovered something unique and unrepeatable, but according to him, this passion is not about their happiness. It is about creating the next generation. The intensity of romantic love often blinds people to the reality of who their partner truly is, magnifying virtues and hiding flaws in order to push them toward union. Anyone who has been in love knows this feeling. The sleepless nights, the obsession, the sense that life only has meaning with this one person. Yet we also know the other side. When time passes, the fog clears, and suddenly, the same person who once felt perfect now seems distant, flawed, and sometimes unbearable. Studies today echo Schopenhauer's view, showing how the brain in love resembles that of someone under the influence of addictive substances, full of highs, followed by inevitable crashes. The deception works so well because it convinces us we are acting out of freedom, when in fact we are obeying a program older than history itself. This is why people often marry in the heat of passion, believing it will last forever, only to wonder later how they could have been so blind. Love in this sense is not a lie we tell each other, but a lie nature tells through us, using our longing for happiness as bait. Schopenhauer's claim sounds harsh, but reality confirms it. Countless couples end up asking themselves if what they once felt was real at all, or if it was just a temporary spell. The truth he exposes is that love may not be designed to keep us happy, but simply to keep life going. One of the strongest promises of marriage is the belief that two people can share a lifetime in peace, supporting each other through every change. It sounds noble, but Schopenhauer questioned whether such harmony is even possible. Human beings are not fixed. They change with age, with circumstance, with hidden parts of themselves that appear only later. The person we marry in our 20s is not the same person we live with in our 40s, and by the time we reach old age, both have become strangers to who they once were. This is why so many couples discover that what once felt like a perfect match turns into a constant negotiation, where desires clash and personalities pull in different directions. Reality shows us this truth in the countless stories of people who admit, quietly, that they stay together not because of deep unity, but because they fear the cost of separation. Even those who do not divorce often carry hidden resentments, a sense of missed opportunities, or a quiet longing for freedom. Schopenhauer saw this as inevitable because expecting two separate beings to walk in complete harmony through decades of shifting life is asking for what human nature cannot deliver. Modern life proves him right when we see how often couples fight over money, intimacy, or different visions of the future, and how rarely these conflicts truly disappear. What keeps many marriages alive is not harmony, but endurance, a willingness to tolerate rather than to live fully. The illusion lies in believing that vows alone can freeze people in time, holding them together against the changes that life guarantees. When that illusion breaks, What remains is often not love, but habit, a fragile structure maintained more by fear of loss than by the joy of union. Schopenhauer believed that human life swings like a pendulum between two forces, the pain of desire and the emptiness of boredom. And marriage is often where this truth becomes most visible. In the beginning, desire dominates, pulling two people together with intensity and promise. But as time passes and those desires are fulfilled or fade, the pendulum swings back, leaving behind long stretches of routine that feel empty. Many couples discover this quietly, not through dramatic fights, but through the slow erosion of excitement. The familiar conversations repeated until they lose meaning, the evenings spent side by side with little to say. What once felt like fire turns into the comfort of habit, and that comfort often slips into boredom. Yet when boredom arrives, desire returns in another form, sometimes as longing for something outside the marriage, sometimes as frustration that the relationship no longer feels alive. This cycle can be seen in countless stories of couples who confess they feel stuck between two unsatisfying choices, craving more when they have too little, but overwhelmed when they try to recapture passion. Modern society only intensifies this problem because we are constantly shown images of fresh romance, new excitement, endless options, making the daily repetition of married life feel even more heavy. Schopenhauer's point is not that marriage alone suffers this pendulum, but that it traps two people inside it, forcing them to swing back and forth together, often blaming each other for a law of existence neither can escape. The reality is clear in the number of people who admit to feeling restless in long relationships, torn between gratitude for stability and hunger for change. Marriage, in this sense, is not a refuge from the pendulum, but the very stage on which its endless swings are most painfully exposed. For Schopenhauer, the greatest tragedy of marriage is that it rarely serves the individual. It serves the species. He argued that the bond between two people is not built for their happiness, but for the continuation of life itself, and that everything inside marriage bends to that goal. We see this most clearly when children arrive. What once felt like a partnership between two adults quickly shifts into a system of sacrifice, where sleep, freedom, and personal dreams are pushed aside in service of raising the next generation. Parents often confess that their lives are no longer their own, that every choice revolves around the needs of the family rather than their own growth. Even those who deeply love their children admit to feeling invisible, as if their individual identity has been swallowed by a role they cannot step out of. Schopenhauer insisted that this is not accidental. It is the hidden plan of nature, ensuring that the individual bends under the weight of responsibilities so that the species can continue. In modern times, this pressure is only heavier, with financial strain, endless work, and social demands, making marriage less about joy and more about survival. Couples often stay together, not because they thrive, but because separating would tear apart the fragile system that holds the family together. The cost is clear in the exhaustion, the rising rates of burnout, and the silent sadness of people who feel they traded their own life for a duty they never fully chose. Schopenhauer's point forces us to confront a reality that is uncomfortable but undeniable. Marriage often asks individuals to give up themselves for a purpose larger than them, a purpose that cares nothing for their happiness, but everything for its own continuation. When Schopenhauer spoke of marriage, he did not hide his belief that it often limits both men and women, though in very different ways. He saw women reduced to roles of service, expected to bear children, manage households, and sacrifice their own ambitions for the sake of stability. For men, he saw marriage as a lifelong burden, tying them to financial responsibility and the weight of providing, leaving little room for personal freedom. While his words may sound extreme, modern life shows traces of this pattern everywhere. Women still carry the greater share of unpaid domestic work, even when they also have careers. And men often describe the pressure of being valued, mainly by their ability to earn and maintain the family structure. Both enter marriage with the hope of partnership, yet many end up trapped in roles they never consciously chose, roles that shrink the individual in order to keep the unit functioning. Studies confirm this imbalance, showing that married women report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare, while men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. while men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household and childcare. While men report higher levels of stress related to household stress tied to work and financial survival. Neither side is free. Each is chained differently, but the result is the same, a sense of living under constant demand. Schopenhauer's harsh view forces us to ask if marriage truly unites or if it quietly divides, pushing each partner into patterns that serve the institution more than the person. The stories we hear again and again from couples struggling under these invisible contracts reveal that the cost of marriage is not simply shared, it is multiplied, as both men and women carry weights that strip them of parts of themselves. The fate they share is not harmony, but compromise. A compromise that too often leaves both sides quietly longing for another life. At some point in many marriages, there comes a quiet breaking point, the moment when the bright image of love gives way to the weight of reality. What once felt like destiny begins to feel like routine, and the stories couples told themselves at the beginning no longer match the life they live. Schopenhauer warned that this collapse is inevitable because passion was never built to last, and once it fades, the true character of each person is revealed. It is then that partners often discover how little they truly knew about each other. The same traits that once seemed charming may now appear as flaws. The differences that felt exciting become points of conflict, and the life that was imagined together looks nothing like what is unfolding. Modern surveys reflect this disillusion, with many couples reporting that their satisfaction in marriage drops significantly after the first years, especially once daily responsibilities take over. What keeps them together is often not joy, but inertia, the belief that leaving would be harder than staying. Behind closed doors, many couples learn to live in silence, avoiding certain conversations, burying disappointments, and carrying unspoken resentments. This collapse does not always end in divorce, but it often ends in distance, two people sharing a house while living separate emotional lives. Schopenhauer's insight is that this disillusion is not a failure of individuals, but a truth about the nature of love itself, that it deceives in order to bind, and once its work is done, it leaves behind the bare bones of reality. The collapse of romantic illusion is painful because it strips away the hope that love will save us, revealing instead that it was never meant to. What remains is often not passion, but the endurance of two strangers learning how to coexist. Beyond love and family, marriage has always carried the weight of society's approval, acting less as a private bond and more as a public contract. Schopenhauer saw this clearly, noting that marriage is tied not just to emotion, but to property, inheritance, and social order. Even today, long after the decline of arranged marriages, the social function of marriage still overshadows personal choice. Couples gain tax benefits, legal rights, and social recognition the moment they sign the papers, while those who choose not to marry often face subtle judgment or exclusion. In many cultures, being single past a certain age is seen as suspicious, a sign of failure, as if adulthood itself is incomplete without a spouse. This reveals how marriage continues to serve society first, by stabilizing households, regulating sexuality, and creating predictable structures for raising children. The proof is everywhere, from government policies that reward marriage to traditions that still measure a person's worth by their marital status. Schopenhauer would argue that this shows marriage was never truly about love, but about order, a way of binding individuals into roles that maintain the larger system. Even in modern times, people often admit they married because it was expected, because it was the next step, or because they feared being left behind while their peers moved forward. This exposes the hidden pressure that shapes. Choices, we think, are free. Marriage in this sense is less a celebration of love than a contract with society, where individuals trade parts of their independence in exchange for approval and legitimacy. The result is that many enter it not out of genuine desire, but out of silent coercion, living lives shaped not by their deepest needs, but by the demands of the world around them. One of the heaviest burdens in marriage is the idea that it must last forever, a belief that locks two people into a future they cannot possibly predict. At the start, permanence feels like safety, the promise that someone will always be there. But as years pass, it often turns into a cage. Schopenhauer warned that binding ourselves to one decision for life is unnatural, because human beings are not static, and what fits us today may no longer fit us tomorrow. Modern divorce rates, which climb higher each decade, are proof of this, showing how often permanence collides with reality. People change careers, values, beliefs, and even identities, yet marriage demands that the bond remain untouched by time. The result is that many endure silently, feeling trapped, not because they lack care for their partner, but because the contract denies the natural flow of growth. Couples often admit in private that if marriage were not seen as permanent, they would have left long ago, yet they remain because breaking it carries shame, financial loss, and the fear of starting over. The promise of forever may sound romantic, but in practice, it often becomes a weight that bends both people into versions of themselves they no longer recognize. Schopenhauer's insight forces us to see that permanence does not always protect love. It can suffocate it, turning affection into duty and closeness into resentment. Reality confirms this in the number of couples who survive together more out of obligation than joy, proving that the ideal of permanence can easily become a sentence. The tragedy is that what was meant to guarantee love often ends up burying it under the pressure of promises that human nature was never meant to keep unchanged. Schopenhauer believed that the individual's deepest longing is not for union, but for freedom, and marriage often stands in direct conflict with that desire. What many discover after years within it is that the constant compromise, the daily routines, and the unspoken obligations leave little space for personal growth. People quietly dream of travel, of pursuing passions, of reinventing themselves, yet they find those dreams postponed indefinitely, sacrificed to the demands of shared life. Modern voices echo this truth in the rising popularity of those who choose to remain single, not out of rejection of love, but out of a hunger to live fully, without constraint. Statistics show increasing numbers of people delaying or avoiding marriage altogether, often reporting higher levels of satisfaction with their independence. This shift suggests that more individuals are beginning to see what Schopenhauer argued long ago. that the value of life is not found in binding oneself to another, but in carving a path true to one's own nature. Marriage, when it becomes an obligation rather than a choice, turns freedom into a memory, leaving behind only roles to be played. The search for freedom is visible in couples who separate late in life, admitting they stayed together for decades out of duty, but now finally want to live for themselves. It is seen in younger generations who refuse to let tradition dictate their choices, preferring uncertainty over the false safety of a contract that may cost them their individuality. Schopenhauer's challenge is clear. If marriage often serves the species, society, and illusion more than the self, then perhaps true fulfillment lies outside its walls. The search for freedom is not a rejection of love, but a recognition that love without freedom cannot sustain the human spirit.